Well, hi, this is week number 21 in our Red Thread study. And we're going to finish off Proverbs, the Proverbs of Solomon, and there are other Proverbs that are added to Solomon's from chapters 17 to 31. I don't even know how to do it. There's a lot of Proverbs here. But I think what I'll do is I'll begin in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is written by Solomon also. And let's just turn to that right now. Here's the memory verse for today. The heart of the wise instructs his mouth and adds persuasiveness to his lips. Pleasant words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. I talked about it last week also, but there's something about the power of our tongue that will add to life or take away life, both in ourselves and in the people we talk to. And it's a funny thing because we all have freedom to choose the words that we say. We have freedom to choose our attitudes. I wrote in the book here that the will, our place where we decide what we're going to say, what we're going to do, what we're going to think, is the gateway to the Spirit. So in my will, remember I talked about Job being the poetical book that deals with the cry of the human spirit. Psalms is the book of the emotions. Proverbs deals with the will. Song of Solomon, or Ecclesiastes, deals with the mind, and Song of Solomon deals with the body, or more the flesh. Not a bad thing, but the flesh. So Proverbs deals with the will, the deciding factor of my life. And every day I make hundreds of decisions. What I will allow into my spirit and what I will keep from entering my spirit. I can give God entry or I can keep God out. I can give wisdom entry or keep wisdom out. I can say good words that bring health and healing to somebody, or I can say bad words that bring pain and debilitation to somebody. My will decides. The will is the king of my life. So we'll come back to that. But let's begin in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a strange book, different than any other book of the Bible. Now remember Solomon, he reigned for 40 years. And unlike David, his father, he had peace for his entire reign. He had no wars to fight. He was not a warrior. Didn't have to be a warrior. David had already conquered the nation, had extended it as far to the Euphrates in the north and to Egypt in the south. And he had all this time, all this money, anything he wanted to do. So he had 40 years to explore ideas. He had this gift of wisdom that God gave to him. He had fame, he had power, he had it all. So Ecclesiastes is a series of explorations that he makes from a very human point of view. Now, the Bible is an inspired book. In 2 Timothy 3:16, it says that all scripture is inbreathed by God. So that means that including that is the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, inspiration, when we talk about inspiration in spirit, in breathed, when we talk about inspiration, we're guaranteeing accuracy from a particular point of view. So there's 3 points of view, basically. God's point of view, man's point of view, and Satan's point of view. So sometimes Satan's point of view is expressed in the Bible. For example, in Genesis chapter 3, Satan comes along and he talks to Adam and Eve. Just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean that what Satan says is accurate. What is accurate is that Satan really did say it. It's his point of view. Same thing in the book of Job. We have Satan's point of view as he said to Job, or said to God, Job just serves you for his own personal benefit. Well, that's Satan's point of view, and it's an accurate expression, inspired by God, an accurate expression of the way Satan feels. When we come to the book of Ecclesiastes, it's the perspective of man, but it's accurately recorded. It's inspired by God in that it's accurate expression of man's view on life. So what Solomon does is he takes about 10 different perspectives on life. Over the 40 years, he explores different philosophies. And he comes to a conclusion. And so it's called, in verse number 1, the words of the preacher, or the word preacher is the debater, the arguer. He's making a point. And his point is, verse number 2, vanity of vanities, emptiness, futility, meaninglessness. All of life is empty. All of life is meaningless. So he takes these 10 different perspectives and he expresses human points of view that he has worked on and thought about and philosophized. And every one of them comes up empty. Every human perspective comes up empty. So that's his point. And the main theme of the book is life really doesn't make sense. It's empty. It's meaningless. So eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow we're going to die. It's a very humanistic point of view, but it's accurately expressed, and that's why it's an inspired book, and it's Solomon's teaching. It's quite interesting, really, that Solomon, this guy that had more wisdom in the depths of his spirit than any other man who's ever lived before him or after him, excluding Jesus. Jesus is wisdom itself, but he had more wisdom, and he just got so far off base. And I thought of, when I was reading this, I thought of that scripture in Matthew chapter 13. Remember the story of the sower sowed the grain and the hard soil, the rocky soil, the weedy soil, and the good soil. And verse 22, for what was sown among thorns, this is the weedy soil, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. And I see that in Solomon. It's very easy to critique him. I didn't live his life. But somehow his wealth, his fame, his power, sitting in this golden palace with everybody bowing to him, it deceived him into thinking there's another way of thinking about life other than God at the center. And so he goes through all these philosophies. And so let's just review them very quickly. I think there's about 10 of them. Number 1, chapter 1, each chapter is almost each chapter is a different philosophy. Chapter number 1 is kind of a mechanistic or scientific view of life. Sun rises, sun goes down, the earth stays the same. The wind blows, goes round and around. The circuits of the wind continue to go round and round and round and round, and it doesn't really go anywhere. Now that's interesting because the circuits of the wind really were not understood until the 19th century and even into the 20th century, the paths of the wind. And Solomon, here it is 3,000 years ago, understood the circuits of the wind. Same thing with when the evaporation cycle. That the rain comes down into the stream flows into the rivers flows into the oceans evaporate, go into the sky, into the clouds, it falls down and round it goes. That whole evaporation cycle is a 19th, 20th century understanding. We see it on the news today. But what he's illustrating is that life goes round and round and round, and all of science verifies this. It doesn't get anywhere. It's meaningless. And we're just a tiny speck in this large, meaningless cycle of life. We have no significance whatsoever. So that's his first view. He's not atheistic. It's not an atheistic view. He believes in God. But there's just a wearisomeness to the world as it goes round and around. It's vanity, it's empty, it's striving after wind. Shakespeare said, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury and signifying nothing. So from a scientific point of view, there's the circuit of life, and life is virtually just empty, meaningless. Number 2, chapter 2. He adopts a philosophy because he had money. He adopts a philosophy of what we would call hedonism. Do as you like. Seek pleasure. And just read some of these lines here. In chapter 2, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. Remember, the guy had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Laughter, and he would bring in comics and jugglers to try and humor him. He said, I tried every way to cheer my body with wine. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks and planted fruit trees. I made myself pools, and I had female slaves and male slaves. I got singers and concubines. I had everything. So that's the second philosophy is the philosophy of hedonism. It's just everything is pleasure. It's all about having fun. And because he had nothing really that he had to do, and he had all this money and fame, he could literally do whatever he wanted. Parties every night if he wanted to. Enjoy yourself. Live it up. Do as you like. Seek pleasure. Number 3, maybe the pursuit of possessions. Maybe if I have stuff, maybe if I have a nice car, maybe if I have a nice house, maybe if I have a summer home, maybe if I have a skidoo, maybe if I get skis, whatever, in verse number 10, whatever my eyes desired, I didn't keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. My heart found pleasure in all my toil. Everything I did, I just had fun. The pursuit of possessions. I get more stuff. I'll be happier. It's funny nowadays, one of the big businesses is storage units. We used to have, when I was a boy, I think the average house was kind of a one-level, 1,200-foot bungalow. Susan's house was a 600-foot bungalow. And then houses got bigger and bigger, and then we got basements to store stuff in, and they got full, and then we filled our garages with stuff, and now we need storage units, and storage units are proliferated. They're everywhere because I don't have enough room in my basement or my garage to store my stuff. I need more stuff to make me happy. So he really nails this one. This is today. Well, number 4 is I'll pursue wisdom, education. That will be the way it'll go. I saw that there is more to gain in wisdom than in folly. We're in verse number 13. There is more gain in light than in darkness. So by studying philosophy, by educating myself, then that will make me happier. So we've seen scientific view of life, hedonism, pursuit of possessions, and the pursuit of wisdom. Now, chapter 3, he moves into a philosophy that we call existentialism. After World War II, existentialism became a kind of a ruling philosophy. And you can't trust religion. You can't trust government. That led us into war and devastation. So all we can really trust is our reaction to life. My existence. How do I react? And you react different than I react, and everybody reacts different. And it's just externals. The reaction is all that really you can do. And that's existentialism. There's a time to be born, time to die, time to plant, time to pluck up what is planted, time to kill, a time to heal. And we've heard songs. And there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to life. That's number 5 in chapter 3. Number 4, chapter 4, is the 6th philosophy, and that's the philosophy of what we would call capitalism, free enterprise. Verse number 4, for example, then I saw that all toil and all skill and work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. So I want to have what my neighbors have. I want to keep up with the Joneses. They got a nice BMW, so I want to get a BMW. They got a new summer home, so I want a summer home. They got a boat, so I want a boat. And I want to keep up with them. And capitalism really is putting yourself to the top of the heap. I want to be number one, and I want to get it for myself, and then I'll be happy. But he comes to the conclusion by the end of chapter 4 that when you get to the top of the heap, some young buck will come up and he'll take your place with a new invention, and you fall down again. And that's how capitalism kind of ends. Competition really doesn't satisfy. Number 5, chapter 5, it's number 7, philosophy. And I would call this the philosophy of religion. Religious formality, going through the rituals. And he says, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. To draw near, to listen is better than to offer sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they're doing evil. Don't be rash with your mouth. And so follow the rules. But in the end of chapter 5, he says that religious formality just ends in vanity also. And so it really doesn't, that most of the world is religious, but it ends in a self-serving, trying to make myself happier, more fulfilled, more satisfied. Religion really doesn't do it for us. Chapter 6. Chapter 6 would be a picture of today, and I would call it the philosophy of materialism. Just have a good life. Verse number 1, there's an evil that I've seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Come down to verse number 3. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, he also has no burial. So he's saying that you get it all, but he had it all and it didn't satisfy. There's this deep craving that we have that is never satisfied outside of God. And so he tried to find fulfillment in all these things, but he never found it because the craving was too deep inside of his soul. Well, we come to chapter 7 and the 9th philosophy. I would call it stoicism. Don't have any feelings. Don't get too involved in life. Sit at the back of the class. Aim at a happy medium. Just get a C. Don't worry about a B. It doesn't make any difference to get a B or an A. Just get through. And that's kind of the philosophy of number 7. I'd say it's just, you don't, verse number 16 would summarize it. Don't be overly righteous. Don't make yourself too wise. Why should you destroy yourself? Surely there's not a righteous, verse 20, surely there's not a righteous man who does good and never sins. We're all going to fail anyway. So just kind of get through, strike at a happy medium. Don't feel this pain to get ahead, or just get through. Chapter 8. I would call chapters 8 to 10 would be the number 10, and this would be a common sense, worldly wisdom. I'll read you a few verses. Verse 11, chapter 9, verse 11. Again I saw that under the sun the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all, for man does not know his time. It's all luck. Just do your best, use common sense. It's all luck. And he talks about retirement. You save up for this magic age of 60 or 65, and then you retire, and then you have a heart attack and die. You don't know. So just kind of take life as it comes and live wisely and go on like that. Number 10, chapter 10. Chapter 10, I think, could be summarized, maintain discretion in life. Be diligent, be temperate, be cautious, be accommodating, work hard, just do good. Be a good guy. Just be a good guy. And it's a very common philosophy today. I like verse number 10. Chapter 10, verse 10 is a great verse, and I think Stephen Covey used it in one of his books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In chapter 10, verse 10, if the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must use more strength, but wisdom helps one to succeed. So Covey talked about sharpening the saw. Take time to sharpen the saw. Take time to sharpen the axe, or you're just going to work too hard. Be wise, use common sense, take downtime, make sure that you're educated, do things right, and then God will bless your work. It'll be worthwhile. Verse number 18 of chapter 10, work hard. Through sloth, the roof sinks in, and through indolence, the house leaks. So work hard, do well, still this common sense view of life. And then he ends, verse number 19, money answers everything. If you've got money, you're going to be fine. You're going to take care of all your problems. But of course, Solomon had money and his problems were not taken care of. Well, we come to chapter 11. And chapter 11, verse 1, he says, cast your bread upon the waters, you will find it after many days. Whatever you reap in life, you're going to sow. He's beginning now to come to his conclusions. Now watch him as he moves along. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Verse number 4, he who observes the wind will not sow. He who regards the cloud will not reap. If we wait for perfect conditions, we'll never get anything done. If you're waiting for the wind to stop or the clouds to go away or whatever it is, you'll never get in. Perfectionism will not get you to the end of the race. And so just do your best, keep it going. Now, he's coming to the end. Chapter 11, verse number 8. So, if a person lives many years, you're old, let him rejoice in all of them. But let them remember the days of darkness will be many. It's going to be difficult. All that comes is vanity. And remember, Solomon died at 60 years old. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart, the sight of your eyes. So, in other words, come back to the main philosophy. Nothing works anyway. So he summarizes again, eat, drink, be merry, enjoy life. You're going to have a hard life. You're going to die one day. Enjoy yourself while you're young. Then at the end of the verse, in verse number 9, he says, but know this, that for all these things, God will bring you into examination. He'll bring you into judgment. So he's beginning to say, yeah, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Live like an animal, but there is a God. And one day God's going to examine your life for what you did with what you were given. And of course, we have that in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, that one day we will stand before God in what Paul calls the Bema Seat judgment. And he will take all that we did, all that we said, all that we thought, and he will give us wood, hay, stubble, gold, silver, precious stones. So we will be graded on everything we did for our attitude, for our heart, for the way that the center. Remember David? He was a man after God's heart. His center was right. Sometimes his behavior was way off base. But we will be graded gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble. A, B, C, D, E, F on everything we've done. The wood, then he lights a fire. This is all a picture. He lights a fire and everything D, E, F burns away. So everything we did with a selfish motive will be gone. Everything we did with a righteous motive or a righteous attitude of the heart of God will will last, and we will be rewarded in what we did. Our eternal reward will be based on what we did according to the heart of God. So eat, drink, be merry, tomorrow we die, but remember that one day you're going to be examined. Now, come to chapter 12. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Guys, he died at 60, but your days are waning. Your strength is waning. Don't delay coming to God. Don't delay putting God at the center. In chapter 4, verse 11, he says, there's eternity at the core of who we are. God's at the center of who we are. Get that straight, that God's at the center. I've tried everything. I've tried pleasure, I've tried money, I've tried capitalism, I've tried worldly stuff, I've tried materialism, I've tried stoicism, I've tried everything I've tried. And it's empty. It's empty. So remember your Creator in the days of your youth, because one day you're going to get old and you're not going to be able to do what God's given you the strength to do right now. So I love his definition of being old. Here it is. Here it's in verse number 2. The days will come when you say, I have no pleasure. I don't like being alive. I'm 96 years old and it's just difficult. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened, the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble. So these are the keepers of the house, and my hands begin to tremble. The strong men, that's my legs, are bent. The grinders cease because they are few. The grinders are your teeth. And of course they didn't have dentists back then, so the grinders cease because they are few. And those who look through the windows are dimmed. That's the eyes. The windows are getting dim. The doors in the street are shut when the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises at the sound of a bird. So you can't hear outside. You can't hear, but I can't sleep either. The birds wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. So I live in fear. I'm an old man. I'm worried. So I'm afraid to go out at night. The almond tree blossoms. Almond tree is white blossoms. That's white hair. The grasshopper drags itself along. I can't walk anymore. Desire fails. That's sexual desire ends. Man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Before the silver cord is snapped. The silver cord is a picture of the life that flows from God to me. It's over. The golden bowl, that's my life, is broken. The pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Life falls apart. So before life falls apart, before you get old, before you get blind, before you get deaf, before you get crippled, before you start to shake, remember your Creator. Remember your Creator. Otherwise, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And then we come to verse 13. The end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole of God. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. There's nothing in this world hidden to God. And you can try what you will to find fulfillment. You can try what you will to find satisfaction, but you'll never find it apart from God. This is the whole of man. God has to be at the center. Trust in the Lord. Proverbs 3, St. Solomon says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So his conclusion is good. He's tried it all. He spent, I don't know how many years, maybe 40 years of his life, from 20 to 60, trying everything. And now at the end of his life, he said, you know what? I started out right, and I got off track because of the cares of the world and the pursuit of pleasure and the confusion that money brings in. I got off track. But I've discovered that the whole of man is that I should fear God, put him first, and keep his commandments. So his research is thorough. He's tried it all, and his conclusion is right. fear God, keep his commandments. That's the whole of man. Well, we can go through the Proverbs and you'll find the same thing. Proverbs says the same thing. It deals with my money, it deals with my time, it deals with my relationships, it deals with my family. Everything is about putting God at the center of my life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean into your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. My prayer is that you and I discover this a lot quicker than Solomon did. With all his wisdom, it took him a lifetime to figure this out, that it was right in the beginning. What his father David had taught him, that follow God with all your heart. Commit your way into the Lord, and he will lead you. And I pray that you, whatever age you're at, that you'll learn this lesson that Solomon learned the hard way, that you'll learn it quickly, and that you'll find goodness, satisfaction, and fulfillment in following God all the days of your life. Amen.